So is high blood sugar a problem? I mean, is it really, really a problem? And do we need to do something about it? Well, we'll look into that today. So how did a Southern minister of the gospel like me get into the business of helping people with diabetes? Why in the world would God do such a strange thing? Well, I'm glad you asked that question. I did a video on my other channel about this and shared some of my conclusions about why I believe God took someone whose only desire was to preach Jesus and turned him into a diabetes educator. A link to this video is in the description. Well, today I'm going to be sharing from an article I found on the health.com website. This is by Karen Pallarito, and she talks about the 15 ways high blood sugar can affect your body. I'm not going to list all of them, but I'm going to list 13 of the things that she says, and then I'll add a couple of my own, or maybe 12. Anyway, who is Karen Pallarito? She is a journalist. She writes on health. In her introduction, she makes the point that toxic amounts of sugar can build up in the bloodstream and wreak havoc from head to toe. And she talks about complications. She quotes a doctor named Robert Ratner, who says if you keep glucose levels near normal, you reduce the risk of diabetic complications. You hear that a lot. If you read much about diabetes, you'll always be hearing about the idea, the word complications. And basically what they mean by complications, it seems like the word is too weak. I would rather they found a more harsh word than complications. Complications is like, well, things get a little complicated for you. They get worse than complicated. They get disastrous. But by complications, what people mean is the negative consequences, and oftentimes severely negative consequences to having high glucose for too long. Your body can stand high glucose for a day or a month or maybe a year or maybe even a decade. But eventually, high glucose is going to cause what they call complications, negative consequences. Bad stuff, in other words, to use a layman's term, bad stuff is going to happen to you because your glucose was too high for too long. So let's read some of the bad stuff, or to use the more proper term, the complications. Number 1, you pee a lot and you drink a lot. Well, I hear that all the time, and a lot of these they weren't news to me because I hear from you guys all the time. I just read thousands and thousands of comments from diabetics, and I hear what's going on. She writes, when there's too much sugar circulating in the blood and the body tries to get rid of it, excess sugar spills into urine, drawing out water from the body. It makes you pee frequently and in large amounts, and as a consequence, you get dehydrated. So what do? You drink lots. So you're constantly thirsty and you're constantly peeing, and it's just a never-ending cycle. And I've heard of people who told me they get up 10 times a night to urinate. I mean, that's just, it's hard to believe, and yet it's so. And sometimes they didn't even realize they had diabetes. But that is one of the classic symptoms when your diabetes gets too high, your blood sugar gets too high for too long. You need to urinate constantly. And as a result, you get thirsty constantly. Another complication, you're tired all the time. She writes, if your cells aren't getting glucose, they're literally being starved of energy. This can make you feel like you're always tired. When your blood is thicker and more viscous due to elevated blood sugar, your heart has to work harder to pump it. It moves more slowly throughout your body to deliver nutrients to your cells. Additionally, when your body gets rid of excess sugar in the blood through urination, you're flushing energy out of your body into the toilet. So exhaustion, again, I've heard of that again and again. And one person said he was so tired, about all he could do was get up from bed and go pee and then get back in bed and sleep some more. Third complication, your blood gets syrupy. Sugary blood has thicker, stickier consistency, and this goes back to that idea of viscosity, which basically means thick blood, or if you've got a high viscosity. Joanne Rinker, and I've seen this quote before. In fact, I've quoted her myself on this. She says, you can imagine how hard it is for thick syrup to get into the tiniest point of small blood vessels, places like the eyes, ears, the nerves, the kidney, the heart. That's why we start to see complications in these small blood vessels. And she says Karen says there's a direct relationship between blood viscosity and blood glucose levels. So your blood is supposed to be watery. It's not going to look like water. It's going to be red, of course, but it's going to pour. It should pour like water. Not that you'd ever want to pour out your blood, but that's how it should be. And you can imagine if you had 1 glass of water and 1 glass of pancake syrup, thick, heavy pancake syrup. You pour out the water and within a second it's all over the table. You pour out the pancake syrup and it just kind of oozes out of the glass little by little because it's so thick. Thick blood does not do what it's supposed to do, and it causes all kinds of problems. So it's a complication, and that leads to more complications. Number 4, it can rob your vision. Again, I hear of this all the time, people whose eyesight went bad quickly. Number 5, you have pain in your extremities, numb toes and tingling fingers. A condition called peripheral neuropathy can be a sign your blood sugar has been too high for too long. The ends of the longest nerve fibers in the body are usually the first to suffer, according to the American Academy of Neurology. That's why the feet, legs, arms, and hands are vulnerable, and that's exactly right. It takes farther to get from your heart to pump that blood into your fingers and into your toes than almost any other place. And they're also smaller. So the fingers and the toes, the feet and the hands are where you're going to experience the most pain. And it's kind of odd because on the one hand, some people experience numbness. It's not really pain. It's just like I can't hardly feel the tips of my fingers anymore, or I can't hardly feel my toes anymore. And others experience prickly pain. Some experience tremendous pain. I've had people tell me I couldn't even hardly sleep. The pain in my feet was so bad, I could hardly go to sleep. Terrible. And with others, it's just numbness, and sometimes it's in between. It's not good. Another complication, feet get infected. People with high blood sugar, Karen says, can lose sensitivity in their feet from the tips of their toes to the heel. So this is sort of like number 5. It's numbness, losing sensitivity. And you can have problems with your feet. You can hurt your foot and not even know it. And then it festers, becomes an infected problem. She again quotes Joanne Rinker, who says, sugar feeds a wound, it just makes it fester. Sugar feeds so many bad things. And one thing you don't want to do is feed your enemy. If you've got some kind of a vicious dog around your house that bites you every time you go outdoors, don't put out food for that dog. Starve him to death until he goes away and bothers somebody else. Who would feed a vicious, mean, biting dog? But people feed their diabetes with sugar and with carbohydrates that are made up of sugar and with starches that are made up with sugar. And you're just going, nice little doggy, doggy. Let me give you another nice meal. And you feed your diabetes more sugar. And you feed your wounds sugar. You feed your infections sugar. And infections and wounds, they love sugar. It makes them get worse and worse and worse. And I talked about one man who shared with me a picture of the foot ulcer he had. It looked terrible on his foot. And yet within a couple of weeks, when he stopped feeding it sugar and carbs, it just went away. Number 7 complication, it harms your kidneys. Kidneys house tiny blood vessels, Karen says, that filter waste products from the blood. When blood sugar is persistently elevated, the filtering system has to work overtime to clear the excess sugar from the blood. The filtering system has to work overtime. So much of your body is working overtime and having to work way too hard. Complication number 8, your heart and brain are at risk. She writes, here's the awful truth. People with diabetes have considerable elevated risks of stroke and heart attack. Studies show that's true even if they have the same level of blood pressure, cholesterol, and other risk factors. In other words, your blood pressure can be fine, your cholesterol can be great, and yet if you've got diabetes, you are at risk, tremendous risk for a heart attack or a stroke. Number 9, it can affect your memory. And of course, that can involve dementia. A German study revealed that higher blood sugar levels impair thinking, Karen writes, and memory, even in people who don't have diabetes. In other words, if you're just getting up kind of close to that level, but you're not quite at the diabetic level, it can still affect your thinking and your memory, and perhaps be a major cause in dementia and Alzheimer's disease in latter years. Number 10, it can cause bladder problems. She writes, people with diabetes are at greater risk of urinary tract infections. I know about that personally. Not only that, but when they do get infections, their problems are more severe. Number 11, your skin takes a beating. Blood sugar problems can show up in your skin. Karen writes, the body's largest organ. When blood sugar is elevated over a period of time, your body loses fluid, and your skin becomes dry, cracked, and itchy, and that's just the start. Skin issues can be among the first signs of diabetes. Dry, itchy skin, sometimes psoriasis, or just flaking of skin, skin that is just not normal and is too dry, can be a cause of having high glucose over a long period of time. And it just goes on and on. Impotence in men. She says the excess sugar in the blood damages the nerves and blood vessels that play a crucial role in making sex enjoyable or even possible. Men may experience erectile dysfunction due to blood vessel damage. And I would add another reason for that would be the blood viscosity issue, the fact that your blood isn't fluid and doesn't flow properly. So between the damage you do to your blood vessels and the fact that your blood doesn't flow as freely, men have problems. Why is it that young men in their 20s, especially their younger 20s or even throughout their 20s, it should be, have no problem with sex? They couldn't even imagine not being able to have sex. They can have it freely, easily, and without any problem. But you take that same young man and add about 30 years to him, and he may have a problem. And he may find his parts don't work the way they're supposed to, and suddenly he can't have sex at all without a Viagra, or maybe even with a Viagra, it doesn't work so well. Well, blood viscosity and nerve vessel damage are the culprits, but beyond those things is once again high glucose. So these are some of the things Karen Pallarito writes about in her article. Again, there's a link to this article on the web. Let me add a couple of my own. First, you typically will gain weight because of excess insulin, either produced by your own pancreas or through insulin injections as a diabetic. You will put on the pounds because insulin is the fat storage hormone. A lot of times people look at an overweight person and say, I'll bet you they've got diabetes or they're close to getting it. And we assume that all the weight will cause diabetes. But there's a lot of people who are saying, wait a minute, you've got it exactly backwards. It's the diabetes or the insulin resistance that is causing the weight gain. Well, I think probably there's truth to both sides of that, but we should not miss the fact that when you force your pancreas to produce lots and lots of carbs as a result, lots and lots of insulin as a result of eating lots and lots of carbs, you are going to gain weight most likely. My next result or bad consequence of diabetes is the exact opposite of the one I just did. And you're going to say, Dennis, you're contradicting yourself. But hold on a minute and let me explain. The next consequence is you lose weight. You say, Dennis, that's crazy. You just said diabetes can cause you to gain weight. Now you're saying you lose weight. Well, the answer is both can be true, but not at the same time, obviously. You see, if you get to the point where you damage or kill off your beta cells from constantly high insulin and constantly high glucose, eventually your pancreas can't keep up any longer. It's been trying, it's been huffing and puffing and pumping its little guts out to try to keep up with all those carbs and sugars and hyperinsulinemia that you are forcing in your body and on your body. But finally, it just gives up. It can't do it. It just, I've had enough. Enough is enough. And beta cells begin to die. High glucose over a long period of time will kill beta cells. And after a while, your pancreas is not gushing out insulin. It's just trickling out insulin. And as a result, your glucose goes up, but your weight comes down. And after a while, You say, man, what's wrong with me? I'm eating like I always did, but I've lost 20 pounds. I'm eating like I always did, but now I've lost 30 pounds. What's going on? You go to the doctor. You find out that you're barely producing any insulin, and you'll have to take insulin, and you're on the road to becoming a type 1 diabetic. So 14 different complications, negative consequences, bad stuff, if you will, that result from keeping glucose high. And of course, insulin normally will be high as well. And, oh wait, excuse me for a minute. Someone's trying to call me. I can't imagine who that would be. Hello?
May I speak to Dennis Pollock?
Yes, this is Dennis Pollock. To whom am I speaking?
This is a friend.
A friend? Well, what friend would that be?
I am a friend. I want to warn you of trouble.
You have a warning for me. Well, okay, what's your warning?
What are you doing tonight?
What am I doing tonight? Well, I was going to take my wife Benedicta out for dinner and a movie. We're excited to see the latest movie called Zombies Eat New York. Yeah, Benedicta just loves zombie movies. Well, I do too. We just think they're so cool.
Do not go out tonight.
What's that? You say I shouldn't, we shouldn't go out tonight? Well, why in the world not? A man should take his wife out once in a while.
Someone will come to your house tonight.
Somebody's coming to my house. Why? What are they going to do?
They want to break into your house.
They want to break into my house?
They plan to steal all your cash.
Steal all my cash? Somebody's coming to rob my house?
They are coming tonight to rob you.
Well, that doesn't sound very good.
They will steal all your electronics.
They're going to take all my electronics as well?
Everything.
That's terrible.
And that is not all.
That's not all? There's more?
They will smash all your dishes.
They're going to smash my dishes. Why in the world would they want to smash my dishes?
They are your enemy. And they will do still more.
There's still more. Well, this person sounds like a horrible person. What in the world is wrong with such a person?
They are your enemy. They are going to release 25 rats in your house.
Rats? They're going to bring rats to my house and release them all over the house?
And they will also smash all your appliances.
All my appliances?
They are planning to rip out your electrical wires.
This is crazy. I can hardly believe it. Are you sure you've got your information right? Rip out all my electrical wiring?
They are coming to your house tonight and they are not your friend.
This person must be the most evil person I've ever heard of. If you've really got this straight, and if you're telling the truth, I can hardly believe that anybody could be that evil.
And they are going to put up a big sign in your yard, calling you a hopeless loser.
A hopeless loser? They're going to call me a hopeless loser?
They certainly will.
Well, friend, I'm grateful you called. If you're telling the truth, I'm not sure. You haven't even told me your name. But if you're telling the truth, why, that would be a terrible thing.
So you must stay home tonight.
Well, no, we're still going to go out to the movie. Benedicta's been counting on seeing this movie for about the last month. It's just come out. Zombies Eat New York. That's such a fantastic movie that we're both eager to watch New York get eaten by the zombies. We love those zombie movies.
Do not go to the movies.
Well, no, I'm just going to take it by faith that everything will be okay. Like I said, I don't even know for sure if you're telling the truth. You may be lying or exaggerating.
Don't you realize what danger your house is in?
Well, I'm sorry, but we just have to go to see this movie. I've been counting on it. My wife's been counting on it. We just have to go see it. I'm sorry. Even if this is true, we'll just have to deal with it when we get back. And by the way, your voice sounds kind of familiar. Do I know you? Have I heard you before?
Yes, you do know me.
What is your name?
My name is Mike.
Mike. And your last name?
Meter. Michael D. Meter.
Michael D. Meter. Well, you never know when Mike the Meter is going to call and spoil your fun. But that little skit was to make a very serious point. Diabetes and high glucose levels are making a major assault on your body and your life in a dozen different ways. You cannot afford to ignore this attack or pretend it doesn't exist or just hope you'll be one of the lucky ones who sees no complications. About the only hope most diabetics have of seeing no complications is to have a heart attack early on and die before the other complications can set in. But that in itself is a diabetic complication. There are two big questions in connection with diabetic complications. One is, what can I do to stop their progression in my life? And a second is it possible to reverse some of the damage that has already been done? The answer to the first question, what can I do, is, well, it's what this channel is all about. Probably the most potent weapon you have against diabetes is cutting down your carbs, the carbs you eat in your diet every day, significantly until you get under 70 grams of carbs per day, and some people will need to go well below that. Carbohydrates, sugars, and starches, not just the candy bars and the pies, but the pasta and the potatoes and the rice and the bread. These things provide the sugar that feeds and strengthens your diabetes and attacks your health. The day you stop feeding your diabetes with starches and sugars, you begin to turn things around and you'll start getting better instead of worse. The second tool for stopping complications in their tracks is time-restricted eating. Instead of grazing on food all day long from morning until bedtime, you set a strict schedule, a window of time each day when you have your meals. For many, 6 hours each day are about right. You can either skip breakfast and have a lunch and a dinner, or skip dinner and eat a breakfast and a lunch. And after your last meal in that eating window, you close up shop. You lock that door of your mouth and refuse to eat until the next day when that window of eating comes around once again. As to the second question, can you reverse the complications of diabetes? The answer seems to be a qualified yes. In many cases, your complications will evaporate. They'll just disappear. But in some cases, they'll still be present, but they will be vastly improved. There are no guarantees in this, but there is a strong likelihood that if you can stop the lifestyle that brought on the misery of diabetes, you can improve your quality of life immensely. In addition to creating a shortened window of eating, the habit of occasionally fasting 36 or 48 hours can also be a powerful weapon against diabetes. If you're not taking insulin or diabetic meds, and if your doctor approves. And make sure you get that body moving. Walk, jog, use a treadmill or an elliptical trainer. Just make your body move the way it's supposed to. And you might think about doing some push-ups or a little weightlifting as well. Yeah, even you ladies could benefit. Stop being a couch potato.